The activation of the economic guillotine. EigenLayer finally activated programmatic slashing on April 17th, transforming billions of dollars in restaked assets from a passive yield farming pool into a live economic guillotine. For nearly 3 years, restaking was essentially a points accumulation game with zero downside risk to the underlying ETH collateral. That period of theoretical security ended this quarter. Now the smart contracts governing the 39 actively validated services live on the network have the technical permission to forcibly trigger partial liquidations of operator stakes. This is no longer a simulation of shared security. It is the first time in history that Ethereum's base layer consensus capital is being held directly accountable for the performance of external middleware. The transition changes every calculation for node operators who previously treated AVS selection as a low-stakes exercise in maximizing emissions. The mechanism of unique stake allocation. The engineering solution for managing this risk is a primitive called unique stake. Instead of a single pool of ETH being equally exposed to every AVS, operators must now explicitly allocate specific portions of their delegated stake to individual services. If an operator double signs on a data availability layer like EigenDA, only the specific subset of ETH assigned to that service is eligible for slashing. This isolation is designed to prevent a single technical failure from wiping out an entire validator's balance across the ecosystem. However, this creates a new optimization problem for developers. You now have to choose between deep security for a single service or thin, diversified security across many. This structural choice shifts the focus from how much yield a protocol offers to how robust its specific fault attribution logic actually is. For the first time, we are seeing the emergence of a real marketplace for cryptoeconomic risk, where the cost of security is determined by the probability of a technical mistake. The Veto Committee has a governance buffer to mitigate the risk of smart contract bugs or malicious AVS code triggering accidental mass slashing. The protocol currently relies on a Veto Committee. This is the most controversial part of the current design, because it introduces a human layer into what is supposed to be a trustless machine. When a slashing event is triggered on-chain, it does not execute instantly. Instead, a 14-day withdrawal queue provides a window for this committee to review the evidence of malfeasance. If the committee determines the event was caused by a protocol bug rather than operator malice, they can nullify the penalty. From a skeptical perspective, this means EigenLayer's security is not yet fully programmatic. It is anchored by a governance council that acts as a circuit breaker. For institutional operators, this buffer is a necessary safeguard, but for decentralization purists, it represents a centralized point of failure that the protocol must eventually deprecate to reach full maturity. Yield compression and the revenue gap. The activation of slashing has exposed a significant disconnect between restaking demand and real-world revenue. Currently, the majority of yield in the ecosystem is still driven by token emissions rather than service fees paid by the 39 active AVSs. This is unsustainable in a live slashing environment. When the risk of losing principal is zero, any emission yield is acceptable. But once the threat of a 30% stake haircut becomes real, rational operators require a risk premium that covers the cost of potential failure. We are beginning to see operators exit certain high-risk, low-revenue AVSs, leading to a concentration of security in only a few top-tier protocols. This suggests that the market is finally beginning to price the underlying engineering risk of these services. If an AVS cannot generate enough organic fee revenue to compensate for its slashing risk, it will likely lose its security budget as the initial token subsidies dry up. The era of cryptoeconomic accountability. The transition to live slashing marks the end of the speculative phase for restaking and the beginning of its life as a functional verifiable cloud. By moving away from theoretical security, EigenLayer has forced the entire Ethereum ecosystem to confront the reality of correlated risk and the fragility of shared collateral. The April 2026 Kelp DAO exploit, which triggered a significant wave of withdrawals, served as a stress test for the 14-day withdrawal mechanism and the stability of liquid restaking tokens under pressure. What we are seeing now is a shift in power from the protocols that accumulate the most assets to the operators who demonstrate the highest technical reliability. For engineers and analysts, the metric that matters now isn't total value locked, but rather the integrity of the slashing conditions and the objectivity of the attribution engine. The next major milestone to watch is the proposed transition from a human-led veto committee to a fully automated, ZK-proven dispute resolution system, which would finally remove the last layer of governance from the crypto economic machine. Subscribe for more.